Testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing. Please let me know if I've got any audio. uh, I hope this is better. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Um, very quickly. Iceberg theory. Uh, uh, talking about iceberg theory. Not talking about iceberg theories in the sense that an iceberg, very small amount of ice at the top. Most of the ice is underwater. Thank you. Yeah, and and when it comes to creators, oftentimes when it comes to literary creators, script writers, book writers, and of course game designers, one of the ways of getting across or making you seem like you're smarter than you really are is an iceberg theory, iceberg mechanism in displaying a lot of information. So we here are going to, let's see if we can put the, okay. uh, the words here that I'm going to type in, we're going to go blue scarves. We're going to put blue scarf. We will place left hand eating. What's something strange or different? Ba 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 ba. Hats with treats for birds. Okay. Let's get this a bit bigger here. There we go. All right. So maybe a little too big, but I think you're going to get the point. All right. So what does any of this mean? Right? It doesn't really mean anything. Okay. Good morning. Okay. Good. That's a sale. So what I've done here is placed information without context. And if you want to feel, in terms of world building, if you want to feel smart, and you want your world to feel deeper than it really is, we can use an iceberg by adding in elements to our world that even we don't know what the answer is, at least not yet. And oftentimes these things will stand out. The hell, I got so many cords and tangles and things like that. One of the things is that a lot of times these things will stand out, especially if they are incongruous to the region in which they are located. Oftentimes, you will see in fantasy that they will have like a stand-in for like the Roman Empire. They'll have a stand-in for ancient Japan. They'll have a stand-in for like Viking culture or something like that. And sometimes it's not bad. Other times we start to roll our eyes and we just go, oh, they weren't really like being creative. They just stole. They just were like, oh, let's make this like I don't know, ancient Aztec or something like that, and then they'll just throw that into a story, and then you're just supposed to go. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's just a detail. Other times you might just roll your eyes and go, boy, they were lazy when they were creating this world. So one way of doing that is to add an element into your world that is intriguing, adds a bit of spice. Why do the people do this thing, and where are they doing it, and uh, why is it important? This could be what I've put here are like social things. Individuals wearing blue scarves. They only eat with their left hand, and or there are hats with treats for birds. Maybe birds fly down on top of these like wide brim hats, and they eat these treats and fly off. Now, I don't know what any of this means, and your players won't know either. But if you introduce this, of course, you introduce this with a bit of um, uh, you don't question your own intentions in introducing this. In other words, you lie, right? It's not really lying. It's more creative deception, much like a magician or an improv actor or something like that. It is you are introducing this into your world, and what will happen here is this blue scarf, this left hand eating, this hat with treats for birds, um, is the tip of the iceberg. Why do these people have this, and why are they doing this, and why this is important becomes something later. So, what you can do in terms of iceberg world building is to the north, write down 1 to 3 things that are different in your world than any other that is very common amongst these people. And this could be referred to people, places, and things. So, for an example, with people, this is like wearing a blue scarf, or they only eat with their left hand, or they wear hats with treats for birds. But when it comes to people, it can be the words they use, their behavior. Um, it's not very common in our tabletop role playing community, but you will see this plenty of times in literature where things are relegated to specific ages or genders or professions. Um, so, an example would be like magic is only taught to the women, or swordsmanship is only taught to the men. You will see ages. The oldest members of the family eat first, or they are uh, the first person to speak is always the one holding the talking stick or the rod or something like that. These are little things with people. Now, for places, there may be you can introduce details with places such as like instead of walls they use instead of solid stone walls they use rice paper for their walls, or they use curtains, or everyone seems to wear a mask in this society, and there is uh, people are not they don't show their emotions except for a specific room in the house in which they scream and yell and cry and laugh, only because it's reserved for that specific room of the house or something like that. And you can start adding these little insertions, knowing full well you don't know why it is that they do this. You just thought it would be interesting. Like you may say, oh, wow, up in the north, what if everybody had like a pet wolf? Like they have a wolf that like protects their house, and there are these wolves that sleep at the front door or something, and they sleep outside and they walk around the house, and you're like, I don't you're thinking in your head like, I don't know why. I think that it would just be cool. And just so you just write it down. You don't need to have reasons for it. At least not yet. Now, the hope and desire is that the players will want to uncover like the iceberg. Like, what? Okay, they wear these blue scarves, but why? And you can defend your lack of knowledge, right? Because as they see these blue scarf wearing people here, you could defend your lack of knowledge because maybe the people don't even question it. Maybe they just do it, and e- even the people themselves are not used to explaining their actions. And when they look at the player characters, they just see them without blue scarves on. And maybe someone is very nice and comes up to them with like a sky blue scarf, and then puts on like a midnight blue scarf on another player character, and then puts on like an aquamarine scarf on another player character, whatever. And they're like, is there a difference? Thank you for the scarves, but why? You know, don't know. Um, so later on, you can start adding details. Well, the the blue scarf is in dedication because of a war they won, or it keeps away evil, or it's a measure of luck, or um, it is a ceremonial embrace of status into our culture, or maybe you just need to wear a scarf because it's so dusty in this region, and you got to wear the scarf to keep the accursed desert winds and dust out of your lungs. But the blue also relates to that blue dragon that happens to live in that oasis and whatnot. I mean, there's so many different things that you can add to it. So one way of getting across a lot of information that even you don't know about is why won't it come on snap into place? Hmm. I guess it won't snap. Is to iceberg your world building. And like I said, these can just be bullet points to the north, to the south, to the people that live in the valley, to those that live in a mountain, those that live along the coast or something, and just put these in. And these kind of things work especially well if they run uh not diametrically opposed, but are unique to your specific world building from an element that we recognize in our own world. So an example would be like we classically, to the north it's cold, to the south it's warm, things like that. And you could just say like, okay, I don't want my northern people to be the stereotypical Vikings and furs and whatnot. I want to change it up, and so you can add in an element that is particularly different, like maybe the people to the north cherish these very fragile flowers that only grow in the South and in warm climates. And so they take a lot of pride in keeping these like terrariums, just dripping just one or two bits of water in with like a little icicle or something like that into these terrariums to keep these flowers alive. And they're like very colorful and whatnot. And you're like, man, it's got to be difficult to keep these flowers alive in this cold climate, right? But for them, it may be very important. Hey, good evening on your side of the world. Hello, it is very, very early in the morning here, 6:20. So anyway, wanted to introduce iceberg world building. It's also a method of dropping lots of what is it? Dropping lots of lore without your players having without giving them a 45-minute dissertation of your world. Just get a couple of bullet points, what's different about the people that live in this particular region, and move on from there. So anyway, that's wanted to do that. We are going to move on to something else that I wanted to describe when it comes to game design and world building. And we're moving a little bit away from world building, and we're going to get into game design and um, creating stats for your tabletop role playing game. And I just decided to pick three, but there's actually plenty of these in games. Now, this very first circle, actually, you know what? I'll change the colors here just to make them a little bit different here. All right, let's see. Let's go with let's here. I hit the orange, and then let's shift the color over to like here, and then we're going to shift this color just to give a little bit of some visual differences here. Sorry. And again, doing this on the fly. All right, okay. Let this go. All right, to the very left, when we're designing games, this is the default method of designing games, and that is from a player's point of view. How do they do things? Like when a player wants to take an action in your game, if you are a game designer or you're looking for a game, what's the very first thing that they uh, attach themselves to? And that is, how do they do a thing? So we often measure how strong, fast, smart, or charming they are. You get the point, right? Strong, strength. Fast would be dexterity. Smart would be intelligence. Charming would be charisma. And we've seen those classic six stats plenty of times. Now, mind you, there are plenty of games that have modifications off of those stats. Instead of strength, it might be muscle. Instead of dex, it might be agility or balance, or reflexes. Smart might be something like instincts or knowledge, whatever the case may be. Charming could be anything from charisma to influence to spirit and whatnot. And that's very common. But there's lots of other ways to do it. And some of those other ways are not simulationist. Okay. So before I introduce the next two, the middle one and the one off to the right, um, the simulationist of us in our minds in tabletop role playing community can be pretty strong, right? How strong, fast, and smart are you? But sometimes we're not really trying to simulate reality. What we're trying to do is simulate a story or a literary framework or something like that. And what I mean by that is on the left side, let's take me for instance. Not too bright, not very, uh, I don't have the charisma. I'm not fast, whatever. And I'm hanging. I'm walking around in this world, and I'm hanging by my fingertips off of a cliff. Now, it doesn't matter like how devoted I am to my family. It doesn't matter how many failed skill checks I made beforehand. If my fingers fail, I'm falling off the cliff. Okay. Life is not fair. And that's what happens when you have stats and you have a mechanism where players, they really, really, truly want to do something, but sorry, life's unfair. Your character's not strong. You're going to fall off that cliff. Okay. Now, we can go to other methods to denote how good or how much better you are, excuse me, at performing an action. So, if me as a character is hanging by my fingertips off a cliff, you could have a game in which you have bonuses based on your devotion to a goal, your desire for wealth or how wealthy your character is, maybe how much influence you have on the world, or even because you're out for revenge. And then in that sense, and sometimes these things, listen, these things can be merged together, right? Like there are times when there's an overlap of these things, right? Hey, my character has I'm just coming up with a number out of my ass, right? My character has a strength of bonus of +2, but because I'm devoted to, I don't know, a faction or a league or a goal, I also get a bonus of like another +1 to hold on to the that cliffside. And some games don't even have s- strength, how fast you are, how smart or charming. Some games only have things like wealth and influence and whatnot. I kind of stole this a little bit from, I believe it's one of the editions of the Dune tabletop role playing game, um, where you have like a set of skills and then a set of like methods or approaches or devotions or something like that. Um, and then here we have off to There we go. Here we have off to the very right. I put down what is not like what is your character doing, but like what are the circumstances that your character is in that makes you better at performing, better or maybe worse at performing a particular action. Like, have you had past failures that now you can pull out some sort of greater ability? Maybe me hanging off of that cliff by my fingertips. 3 times previously, I failed in something. I failed to bargain with the guard. I mean, a shopkeeper. I failed to convince the guard to let me into the city state. And I also failed to sneak past those same guardians or whatever. But now I'm hanging by my fingertips. Those past 3 failures add to a thing that I can do now. Now I'm better at succeeding in this task. Others could be like emotional things like anger, fear, rage. Is it because I'm angry or fearful or enraged at this moment? Do I get a bonus for that? And there are many games that do things like this. Some games don't have any of these three things that I'm talking about. Some games just have actions. Um, and there's many actions like conflict. An action may be investigate. And it, it it is a some games are just proactive in the player's hands, meaning like You are trying to take an action. You have points in your actions, and that's it. So, how do you open up a door? Does it matter if you're maybe you describe your character as strong? Maybe someone else describes their character as being uh, very creative, but neither of those two matter if you have, say, an action of like um, sabotage or wreck or convince or sneak or something like that, and then you just describe your character that way. But let me get back into here. You're so funny. I hear you. Yeah, a sort of plant spirit who treat the flowers so they could wander the world. In your world with the flowers being taken care of in a frozen climate, sure, why not? I remember I was just pulling out of my ass. I don't know why, and that's the iceberging of the world building that I was thinking. In the story, I had an NPC who treats a flower as their lifeline. Ah, very cool. I see. I love that sort of thing. Self-deprecation can be amusing up to a point, but we reached that point a long time ago. I hear you. Sometimes as a DM, I adjust a few things in the background in D&D to hold in mind what a character did in their past or use their expected skill set usable to practice. Yeah. And now mind you, some games don't allow for this, and our what our expectation is and what the game does may be two different things. So for example, in Dungeons and Dragons, it is they've made it very generally simulationist, meaning like um, strong characters do strong things, fast characters do fast things, but your past failures, your past endeavors don't matter at this very moment. But they introduced inspiration, which inspiration is a method of like, well, maybe because of your devotion or failures or acting in character, you now have a bonus at this very moment, right? For portraying your character in a particular way. And that's one way to have that overlap. Yeah. In the dark eye, and I've heard about the dark eye. I've never played it, never seen it. In the dark eye, you have a big range of skills and can expand the use of them. I see it. I've seen, and I don't know if this is a normal thing in role playing games across the pond, that instead of like a small set of tightly grouped statistics, they tend to have a larger group of um, various statistics, like a dozen or more. And I've seen that before in a number of games. I don't know if I've seen it in Dark Eye. Pretty sure I've never actually seen a page of it, but I've been introduced to it plenty of times. What's another game like that? The Genesis is like that as well. That has a large group of skills and capabilities, and they are grouped in little chunks. Like these are the social skills, and there's like six or seven of them, and then these are like physical actions, and there's groups of them. You know, um, mm, mm. The NPC was close to. Matilda learned to practice the weather with her nature skill through an ability of hers. Sounded useful when you were afraid of thunder. That's cool. Yep. Yeah. I was thinking of Final Fantasy too. Yeah. The NPC was close to a dryad in concept. She had a plant orb carrying around. Cool, cool, cool. In the dark eye, there are six body stats and reverence with them. With your skills, three are used and made them. Unsure, but um, but yeah, yeah. Anyway, another comment. The dark eye, das Schwarz. I I will not be able to pronounce that. The dark eye tabletop role playing game. Let me see. Let's see if we can find something here. Images. Is this it? Or one of these? Yeah, I love myself some games across the pond. Yes, that is the translate name, but did not so just use it in the English chat. Yeah, DSA has many rules to it. That is the English logo. Okay. All right. Cool. 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 Yeah. At least from my point of view, it hasn't really um, captured the attention of us across the pond. It just feels like both physically and and distant wise, because the states are far away from other countries, that we also seem to be that far away from um, the same types of like entertainment and things like that here. Plus, plus those of us in the states is pretty large. It's much larger than other people give it credit for, and so living here in the states is like being in another country. As each state seems to be its own country sometimes. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, the Dark Eye. But in Europe, it is similar to D&D. Not many know the one in my space if they aren't English speaking. Ah, cool, 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 cool. All right. Um, something else that's that I find important, and let's see if we can put this. Do I want to put the whiteboard up? Yeah, I'm gonna put the whiteboard up. So, when it comes to game design, I'm going to share this out. This is just a very simple whiteboard that I have here. Um, don't want to get too intricate here. Um, I've got a lot of stuff in the whiteboard here. This is from the other day when I was talking about like home homes and bastions, and how to run 20 story hooks to use for players that have a home base. Um, we were talking about bastions and bastions because that's the name that the 2024 Dungeons and Dragons has given to players that want to create like a castle or a wizard's tower or something. Long before we called them bastions, uh, they were like forts or churches or, like I said, wizards tower or thieves guilds and things like that. And then I was relating this to the television show Yellowstone, and uh, in order of each of these little geometric shapes, and their distance from the center of home, are basically story hooks for the characters to kind of like step away from home, come back, threats to their home, come back, and that kind of thing. So that was one of those. That's what that is. That's just uh, a throwback to what I did the other day. But let's see if I can page down here. Do, 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 do. So let's make something new. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's do this on the fly here. So um, another way of I kind of like the visualization. So let's make a circle. So I'm gonna make a big circle here. Don't care. We're gonna put in. Let's get the font size up here to like 48. So I'm gonna put here forest, and let's get some other shapes here. I am going to design uh, exploration that is just like dungeon crawling. And sometimes we seem to have this idea that dungeon crawls and exploration are both completely separate things, and it's very strange to me because for me, wilderness, external dungeon crawling, wilderness exploration, hex crawling, whatever you want to call it, um, is exactly like dungeon crawling, except sometimes the shapes are a little bit different. So let me get a square here, um, rectangle. Okay, let's let's change the color, and what size did I hit a 48? I think I did. And we're going to make this a uh we're going to make it mountains. Move this around here, and then what do I want? Let's make another one of these. And I'm going to come on. Why isn't it? I want to make a duplicate of this. So I'm just going to make a bunch of these different shapes here. Um, and each of these shapes is the reason why I'm picking these different shapes here is because what I'm trying to do, I'm going to make this, come on, turn this into a valley and change the color of this back to black so you can actually see it. And so what I'm doing here live, because I'm not sure if this is actually going to work at all, um, is using these. Come on, just using these as a method of like um, where the players are, what's happening here, and there we go. So all I'm doing is making some shapes, and I'm using the shapes as a kind of a method of designing like where the players are, what they're doing, and using it very very simply. Basically, like a what some would call a point crawl or something like that. Now, mind you, you don't have to use geometric shapes. You could just write these down on 3x5 cards. Um, you could write these in notes and whatnot. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, domains would be a good name for that. Thank you. Um, thank you there, Matt. Uh, uh, but the idea here is that instead of a dungeon with a bunch of these square, rectangular hallways and rooms and things like that, instead, what you can actually do is just have regions, right? You have regions or something, and you could put them in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, if you have 3x5 cards, you could literally shuffle them, flip them over, and put them side by side, top to bottom, or whatever. And when the players go from the mountains, right, they travel to maybe into the valley, and then they go into the forest. And that would be like going down a hallway. You're in hallway 1, hallway 2, hallway 3. Now, mind you, a dungeon, a classic dungeon, is bounded, right? You have walls. You have you go into a dungeon. You have the the classic. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the light blue classic graph paper, and you could actually buy books, full books of like that light blue classic graph paper. I need to make this a little darker because the far edge is disappearing on me. Let's get this one. Let's put you there. All right. So, um, and mind you, like here, I've got some overlap. So there we go. Let's get some overlap here, right? Okay. Now, is it possible for the players to go into the mountains, skirt, walk all the way around the valley, the other side of the mountains, and go into the forest? Sure, why not? Maybe the players go from the mountains to this tip of the forest, and then they have to go through the valley and then back into the larger forest. Sure, why the hell not, right? But you can populate these three regions just like you would a dungeon. There's orcs in the mountains, there are, I don't know, trolls in the valley, and there are monstrous ankhegs in the forest, or treants, or dryads, or whatever the case might be. And you can fill these just like you would a regular dungeon. And I think sometimes this is just from my personal point of view that when it comes to game design and things like that, sometimes our simulationist brain um, takes a thing and moves it into a region it doesn't need to be, right? Meaning we want things to be simulated to the point of seeming like reality, and really in a role playing game we only want the feeling of reality. We don't actually want reality because reality sucks. in many ways, right? I mean, reality has like ingrown toenails and dysentery and oversleeping and a hair in the eye. Like reality has things that are not only just annoying, but frankly, we really don't even want to deal with those things. And why would we introduce them into a role playing game? And so, therefore, the physical act of traveling through mountains and through the valleys, and we want to feel like and we need rules, special rules for that. And no, we don't. All we really need are numbers that we normally use for any of our role playing games, and then all we just need is context. So if we're in the mountains, there are maybe we incorporate some of the rules for mountains. We use some of those skills that are on the character sheet for climbing and scaling things, and moving large boulders or something and using our rope. And then we get down into the deep valley and we're worried about, monstrous things that are above us as we're down in the deep valley. And then we get into our forest and we have to worry about uh, trees and short sight lines and not being able to see our allies as we stretch out or something like that. And we can add those environmental effects into the game just as much as anything else. Reskinning, reusing, repurposing those traps that we see in our classic dungeons actually add to exploration. So now you might be saying to yourself, well, if I design my exploration like a dungeon and there's no walls, what's preventing the here, let me do this here. I put forest and we're going to put trolls. We've got the valley. What did I put in the valley? Oh, shit, I put trolls in the valley. I can't even remember what I said previously. Ank, is it Ank Hegs? Shit, Ank, is it the AHK? Okay, you know what? Boo, is it Boulays? One T or two T's, or is it one L and two? Fuck, two T's. Doesn't matter. All right, okay. And then in the mountains, we've got orcs, right? So, why do I do this live? Reality sucks, DBJ. Yeah, it sure does. It starts that I made an abandoned mine who was taken over from kobolds because they mined into the existing mine network and used it to expand. Of course they do that. As DM, I like to hint bigger details to explore from breadcrumbs. Yep, breadcrumbs. That's not a bad habit. Breadcrumbs? Breadcrumbing's not a bad habit at all. That was that's the iceberging, right? That's the maybe there's something over here, whatnot, right? Um, yeah, yeah, nothing wrong at all for doing that. So here we have. Let me see if I can get this a little bit bigger here. So yes, in a classic dungeon, if these were rooms, one room to the next room to the next room, that there's a wall, there are walls and hallways to keep the orcs away from the trolls away from the boulets, right? In this dungeon. So, but this would happen in any tabletop role playing game. When the players arrive in the mountains with the orcs, it starts the domino effect that when whatever the players do, and it's their choice to do that thing, when they go into the valley, do the orcs follow them to the valley? Do the orcs have a treaty with the trolls in the valley, right? What is their relationship from one to the other? And that may color the interaction the players have with the trolls in the valley, which then may color the interaction of the forest with the boulets. Now, the trolls, despite the fact that they regenerate a lot, maybe the boulets, land sharks, for those who don't know, sometimes they are called land sharks. Um, it's possible that that the land sharks love to taste the trolls. I mean, they taste so good. Mm-mm-mm. And the simple fact that the trolls regenerate might even be better for the boulets. So they take advantage of the trolls every chance they get. 3 to 5 of these damn land sharks things dive under the ground in the forest, come up, grab on um, snatch themselves a troll thigh and thigh, wing, or breast, and devour that thing, even as it tries to grow itself back into another troll. And they eat on this thing. And the trolls really don't like the orcs, but they could use their help in curtailing the boulets, right? And this is all story that I'm making up. So instead of walls and hallways and doors and secret doors and tapestries, instead you have the environment. So the mountain orcs may be up in the highlands because the trolls don't like being up there. Maybe it's cold. Um, Maybe the trolls just like down deep in the valley. Maybe it's like misty, maybe a little swampy or whatnot. And so the thing that's keeping the orcs away from the trolls is not a wall or a secret door down the hallway. It's the environment that's keeping them away. Just like the trolls who have to climb up out of the valley to get into the forest, maybe there's some things to eat in the forest, or there's good hunting grounds and whatnot, or maybe the trolls themselves have been pushed out of both the forest and the mountains, and now they're sitting down in the valley, and they're like, this effing sucks, like damn it, you know. And so the actual environment itself could affect all of this. So, and you could even add some other, instead of secret doors and trap doors and things like that, which you can absolutely add when exploring a place. You can also add rivers and sheer cliffs and vast deserts and other things. And you can also populate each of these things, mountains, valleys, forests, with things like monuments and crypts and sinkholes and world trees and springs and all those other things that you would add in there, just like you would in a dungeon. So just from as a designer, as a game designer, just for me personally, I've always found it very strange that um, we desire this verisimilitude when we really don't need it. All we need basically are like point crawling and designing exploration just like we would design any other classic dungeon crawling thing, and you just fill each room. I'm using different shapes to differentiate it from um from a dungeon, but you could literally just take a bunch of squares and move them around. Like, you see how I'm live moving things from one place to another. There's nothing stopping me live from writing these things down like creatively, and just going like, oh man, I'm at work, I pull out my note cards, or I pull out my Google Doc or something, and I go, oh, I want to make a valley of trolls, or oh hey, I want to make these mountain orcs or something, or hey, I got this forest. And mind you, this is all prep, but it's also improv as well. You can just have these things and throw them in at another time. Maybe as you are designing, you go, oh, I've got these three, but the players decide to go to the south to avoid the trolls, and you're just like, shit, I didn't come up with anything. So then you have another one of these things, and you put it down here, and you start just linking them together. And all these would just be point crawls, right? A point crawl is basically you go from one point to another. It's like a line. Let me see if I could insert one of these, right? So um, a point crawl is basically like you go from one point to another point, and then you attach something to one of those points, right? So you have like there's forest, there's valley, you know what I mean, and you do it that way. So the point, one end of the point, come on, yeah, it's covering it up. There we go. I see it. So one end of the point may go from another end of the other point, and then you just have things in the middle. Like um you could have a random table. you could start like I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit so it just makes a little bit more sense. And then let me add another one of these in here. Twist this around, right? And so, um, in there we go. Let's shorten this up just a little bit here. So with a point crawl, you could just put like, okay, right here is 3 days, and this other line is 2 days. And then, heck, I could even add another one in here and throw this up here. And then this point crawl here from, into the valley or whatever is, let's shorten this up a whole lot and then twist this around like that, right? And so maybe this is like uh short, medium, long, right? And so from the valley to here is 1 day. From the valley to the forest is 1 day. From the valley to mountains is 2 days. From the mountains to the forest is 3 days. Now, this isn't a real map, right? This has no relationship to reality. But a point crawl is basically you go from one point, the valley, to another point, the mountains, and there's basically bullshit in the way. Now, a random encounter, again, random encounters don't mean combat. It could just be a random table, 6 items, 100 items, 20 different things that may happen along the way in your world that they can come across. It doesn't have to be combat. It could be nomadic tribes. It could be merchant travelers. It could be guardians, scouts, surveyors, hunters. It could be safe havens, um, a glen, a monument, a dead bodies, um, circling animals circling overhead. I mean, all kinds of things that describe your world, and you throw those into the line from point to point, right? So you have your specific, like, this is where the adventure takes place, and then the point crawl is just, oh, it's 3 days. We'll have 3 events happen, and then you either roll or you decide what's going to happen from one thing to another. When I hear land sharks named, I start to make potato salad and forks to make dinner ready. What? How did land sharks end up with this French name? Very funny. This is true. This is absolutely true. Okay, so and I believe there's even a way to look this up. So the boule came about. This is so stupid. So Gary Gygax and his friends would order these little plastic toys from Hong Kong, and they they liked the shape of the toys, and they would give the names of creatures in Dungeons and Dragons from the shapes of the toys. So they would draw them out. And the boule happened to be one of them. At the time, the United States had some animosity with the French. So they named it the boule out of an annoyance with France so that it would be a creature that people did not like. And they just called it the boule. In my location, that word is used for a meal. That's funny. Let me see if I can find some. Boo, Boules D and Dungeons and Dragons. Here we go. Images and share this out. Yep. Yeah, there's the boule, and they are horrible creatures. I love them. They swim through the ground and jump up. They're basically land sharks. They're sharks with limbs, essentially. It's what they are, and they leap through the air and attack you with all four of their limbs, and then I think they pin you down. And there's a whole bunch of different stats for them over the ages, but for their level, they're pretty horrible. And if you fight them in a like I don't know what you call like a herd or something like that, they could be pretty rough. I think there's a fifth edition. Here's some. That one's not the best. But yeah. Kind of like They swim through the ground. Mm-mm-mm. We had trouble with France in the early '80s for something like that. Remember? You don't remember? Oh, you maybe you weren't here at the time. There was this dumb thing about like people not wanting to call French toast and French fries French, and they were like they're freedom fries and freedom toast. It was dumb. It was very extremely dumb. Ishtar talks about my players saw the mine's entrance and some cobalt traps and roped out of it. The bandits had no pity for them. The bandit closed the entrance. Noticed too late that the kobolds have built traps and opened up the entrance again. Took longer than they got from approaching kobolds. Yeah, that's going to happen. Oh, boule, it's a meat dish. You could say a minced beef with breadcrumbs, herbs, and some salt and pepper. A sort of burger patty. Oh, now I'm a bit hungry. That sounds kind of good. That sounds really good. Anyway, sorry. Squirrel. Get a little distracted here, of course, as we always do here on this channel. Um, sometimes we I'm just practicing with this visualization thing here. Sometimes we make things a little bit too complicated for ourselves in tabletop, not just game design but implementation. And sometimes we want to make things easy. So listen, if you want to do like literal exploration, like I want my players to explore my game world, but I don't have game stats for how do they travel from A to B, you don't really even need anything like that. What you do is you just design your external world like you would your classic dungeon crawling world, especially in fantasy. Now, mind you, this works exactly the same way for science fiction, right? Each of these geometric shapes can be a place, a space hab, a planet, a moon, a starship, and then the point crawl, the line from A to B is the distance. Oh, it's 3 weeks, it's 4 light years, it's 8 hours or whatever. And then you have encounters along the way if you want to have any of those encounters. And then your other classic things in dungeons, secret doors, traps, what cobalt traps and all that, you just layer them in these locations like you would any other dungeon, right? And many of those are you can recontextualize as natural environmental effects. So it's not that the mountains have pit traps, it's that when you're walking along the dangerous mountain passes that you could slip and fall into a pit because the ground is fragile and will crumble beneath your feet. You're walking in an Arctic region and the frozen lake will break underneath your feet. It's not that someone designed it. It's the fact that the natural element of the world is that trap. What's another classic trap? The rolling boulder, the oh, what is it? Indiana Jones rolling boulder trap, right? He pulls the idol and then the rolling boulder comes after him. Why wouldn't that just be falling rocks, a rock slide? Same thing for like what is another classic trap, the collapsing ceiling trap, right? Again, falling rocks, falling trees, whatnot. Heck, in a forest, you could have a forest fire, and not only are the trees falling down around everyone like a collapsing ceiling, but you can also add in or divide up into fire damage. Hey, a tree catches fire and you've got to make a deck save and fall out, roll out the way of the tree falling down. Oh, by the way, we're going to add in half cover or three-quarters cover or something like that because there's a burning tree between you and the enemy, you know, et cetera, right? Maybe those land sharks just burrow underneath the burning trees to come after the players to grab their ankles, but the players not only can they not dig under the ground, but they also have to use maybe athletics and or acrobatics checks to jump across burning tree limbs and tree trunks to get from one place to another, dodging it like a maze or something inside of a dungeon. And again, the valley with the trolls, hey, just don't fall prone, because if you fall prone, the steep valley walls, you're just going to fall down to the bottom of the valley, right? And so it's not just a matter of having things happen, but have the environment. I love the environment using environmental effects. The environmental effect could be if you fall prone on the higher portion of the valley, you're probably going to roll down to the bottom part of the valley, um, and so on because of how sheer or the angles are bad, and so the trolls use that to their advantage. Hey, the adventurers want to go to the top edge of the valley. Some of the trolls, kick the PCs down into the lower part of the valley, and then they get attacked by the trolls at the lower part of the valley. Players try to climb themselves out, and then they get kicked back down, right? And that might be the way that the trolls use it for their own purposes. The players could then use that same valley against the trolls. They decide to throw the trolls down at the bottom of the valley, and a player using a fireball, ball, or lightning bolt, or acid, or whatever, fills the bottom of the valley with the player character generated horror. you know, I'm going to burn the bottom of the valley, and we're just going to start kicking trolls down there, or whatever, and just have some fun with that. But again, point crawling, kind of cool. Summary. Let's go back to the summary here. Iceberging, introducing very simple, unexplained people, places, and things and details about them, and then explaining why it is happening later. It makes you look very intelligent. It makes you look like you're super prepared, and it's a way for you to. It is a way for you as a creator, a world builder, to use. Why isn't it snapping into place? Whatever. It's a way for you to feel, for your players to feel like you have a very intricate world with a lot of detail by introducing a thing, and then the players then try to uncover what that means. And what happens is, if you listen to your players, they might have a better idea for why people are wearing blue scarves than even you do. And so what you do is you take that as a note, and you go, wow, you guys are smart. You are right that they're wearing blue scarves because it's an honor to um, the legacy of the dead queen and her three husbands, or something like that. And she always wore these blue scarves and whatnot. And you write that down in your notes, and you're like, I wasn't even thinking about that. I forgot I even mentioned that, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then later on, they confront I don't know, the vampiric queen and her three husbands. One's a lich, one's a skeletal warrior, and the last one's a necromancer, or something like that, right? And so on. And they're wearing their classic blue, and you're like, the soldiers are wearing blue as well, it, right? And I literally just pulled that out of my ass. I had no idea I was even going to go there, but it makes it seem like I'm smarter than I thought I was. Poison dart traps. Here's the thing about like a poison dart trap. It could be a plant that just happens to have spines on it that's poison. Like, it could be an extremely natural thing in the environment that no one set up. Or there could be like tribal peoples, like those orcs, or even those trolls that set up poison traps. Yeah, yeah. Machu's like, yeah, let the players do the legwork for you. Yep. Make Just like this channel makes me seem like I'm smarter than I really am. Yep. I like to lock up a door as a trap. Yeah. Freedom Fries was George W. era. It sure was. It sure was. Yeah, dude, that was Freedom Fries. It should happen way later, 2003, just because the French didn't want to help us attack Iraq. As far as I know, it's been a long time since we had real trouble with France. Oh yeah. It was just dumb. You're talking about like when the boulets. Yeah. Amon is a good but a running joke on my table always when the land sharks come up. It's like, they taste so good. Maybe in your world they do taste good. Fry up some boule steaks, and yeah. Mm-mm. Yeah, what once had a language mix in a demonic cult. And this is a real thing too. Lawful evil and chaotic evil use different languages in the setting. The player made a theory about it. For those who don't remember, alignment languages were a real thing. If I don't know, some of you remember that alignment languages were a real thing. Um, I didn't mind alignment languages because it was like, well, if your alignment changes, how come you can all of a sudden speak this new language? And I think they were thinking of the language like French versus German versus English, right? Whereas I've never tried Shark. um, but I was always thinking that it was more like body language and slang and intent rather than a language in terms of like being taught in school. But whatever. Um, heck, even with in exploration with like secret doors and locked doors, instead of secret doors and locked doors, you could have secret pathways that you find to travel from A to B. Um, Secret passages underground, finding and maybe just finding your way. It's like navigating across land. Yeah, you think you can walk from a straight line from A to B, but actually the shortest way could be a pathway that you find in the uh, in the environment. And then lastly, we come over to here to like game design, talking about like stats and attributes and things of that nature. Maybe you're designing your own game and you're like you're you're putting in strength, dex, con, wisdom, intelligence, and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, but this doesn't fit for my game. Maybe you have other stats, related to like why a character is doing a thing, their emotional state. Maybe you don't have stats at all. You just have actions, or you have like kind of a blend of all of these, or a little bit of a few. Like maybe you just have like body, mind, spirit, and then you have maybe three other things like willpower, devotion, and focus, or something like that. And then maybe you have three other stats like fear, anger, and like anger, fear, and rage, or like maybe you have rage, fear, and what's another, um peace or whatnot, and combining those together, is like, well, you really can't pick a lock when you're enraged, and it works against you when you're fearful, but if you have a high peace score and you're trying to pick that lock, maybe it's better. I know that's way out there, since I literally am pulling it out of my ass, but those are different things. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me visualize this. I like that. Yeah. Alignment languages made a brilliant comeback in Planescape. I love it. Remember the K Chaosetics? Is that how to pronounce it? But they did come back in Planescape. That is absolutely correct. Because each of the planes was the physical representation of moral and ethical alignment, and I miss that. I miss that part of the world in Planescape and fantasy and stuff like that. Maybe I might pull out my old Planescape books and talk about that. Yeah, so the lower ranking members don't find out some secrets. Huh. Oh, the chaotic evil cult used the lawful language for the upper levels of the cult. Oh, so the lower members, dog the tanks don't stoop around. Yep, I get it. Yeah. Chaosetics. I think that's how it's pronounced, chaosetics, or you could pronounce it that way. Shark is standard battered fish and fish and chips where I come from. Oh wow. That's awesome. I'm from the East Coast of the states, so I grew up around a lot of like fishy shellfish fish things. So I love various fish meals. So yeah, I love it. I've since moved to Ohio. It's very land based, very beef and chicken. I still remember the name of the languages, so the mix up happened eventually. But here's the thing, right? Even that accident, going like, oh man, I mixed them up all the time. Even that happy accident makes a thing, right? And if you just twiddle your thumbs like when the players figure something out, and you're like, you guys are smart, and you're thinking in your head like, shit, I made a big mistake. Oops. The Gentleman Gamer. Ah, yeah, I remember had a brilliant video with Chaos speak totally jumbled up word order. That's awesome. I never knew that. Yeah, he the Gentleman Gamer just had a Kickstarter for his version of the World of Darkness type of game. I should ask where you guys are from when these things start. Yeah, yeah. Where are you? Where? Let's see. I'm in the Ohio Valley in the states. I've got my camera closed off, so because it's a little mixed up here. Oh, trying to set up my soundboard. I can't get my soundboard going with my Rode microphone. Very odd. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you, by the way, for everyone who's like over on Twitch and YouTube, and technically, it's actually Facebook as well. I don't leave the links in. I really guess I should do that. And I don't even get onto Discord any longer because I know I'll fall down that rabbit hole. But I apologize for doing anything like that. Later on tonight, I will be part of a cool name goes here um, live game. Hopefully that will be a thing. That's one of the projects I'm working on. But we're doing some play testing, and hopefully, not hopefully, I'm sure there will be some great things that come out about that as well. So NZ New Zealand, yeah, put yeah. Throw in where you guys are throw in where you guys are at because you may come from someplace else, but yeah. Yeah, how is it living in paradise? Yeah. Maybe literally the other side of the world, if I'm not mistaken. I guess if I looked at a globe, that's awesome. Wow. Wow. Thank you very much for stopping by. It's got to be straight. What time of what is the time over there? Let's see. What time is it in? Ooh, 1:15 a.m. GMT plus 13. Wow. It's 7:15 a.m. here as we speak. So okay. All right. Not quite paradise, but pretty close. Comparatively speaking, many of us would go, yeah, that's where you live. So, by the way, Machu, thank you very much for being here. And all the rest of you as well for reaching in. It is 1 a.m. Thursday. That is amazing. Yeah, it is 7 quarter after 7 a.m. Wednesday for ourselves here. Yeah, should I say I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now permanent resident of Hamburg, Germany. That's awesome. That is amazing. Mm-mm-mm. Such a global world. Such a global world. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, everybody, have a great day. Thank you very much for just stopping by and hanging out. If you guys have any other like subjects or things like that, topics you guys want to talk about as well, I don't have a problem doing that. And of course, it's going to send you out on Obsidian Star, mainly because they, for some reason, and I don't know why this is, my streaming software deleted all of my intros and outros, and that's all that's happy is left. So, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye. Happy gaming. Mhm.